The galaxy was silent, waiting for Earth's answer. For years, humanity had been pushed, mocked, and forced to obey the Galactic Council. They had been called children of the stars, weak and small compared to the ancient empires that ruled the spiral arms. Every time humans tried to speak, their voices were drowned by the laughter of older races. Every time they asked for fairness, they were ignored. But then came the message. It was not long, it was not complicated. Across every communication channel, every council relay, every fleet transmission, the words appeared in bright letters. A human voice read them, calm and steady. No more, that was all. 2 words. For a moment, the council chamber was filled with uneasy silence. The alien leaders, scaled, feathered, and many-eyed, looked at one another in confusion. Some tilted their heads. Some hissed or clicked in amusement. Then slowly the silence broke into laughter. The prime speaker of the council, a towering being covered in metallic plates, struck the floor with his staff. Is this their answer? 2 words, he mocked. The humans think themselves dangerous, but they are still young. They do not understand war. Others joined him. An avian senator spread her wings, feathers shaking with laughter. They are dramatic, yes, but drama does not win battles. They have no fleets large enough to threaten us. Yet not everyone laughed. A few of the older members frowned. The message had been strange, too short, too confident. Humanity had always argued, begged, or tried to explain themselves. This time there had been no argument, no anger, only calm refusal, but the council chose to ignore that feeling. Instead, they voted. The humans had broken laws, they said. The humans had refused to share their technologies, they said. The humans had spoken out of turn. And now the humans had insulted the entire council with their silence. The vote was simple. Punish Earth. Orders were sent to fleets across the galaxy. They would move toward human space. They would seize their colonies. They would force humanity back into its place. As the orders spread, the laughter in the chamber grew louder. But on Earth, there was no laughter. The humans stood in silence, watching the council's response with cold eyes. Generals met in underground bunkers. Leaders spoke behind sealed doors. Workers and engineers labored in hidden stations, building machines that the council had never seen. Humanity had been quiet for a reason. For decades they had listened. For decades they had taken insults, endured rules, paid unfair taxes, and kept their voices low. All the while they had been preparing. Every slight, every insult, every demand had been fuel for their determination. Now that patience was gone, the words "no more" were not a cry of despair. They were a promise. The first fleet to test that promise was small. 5 cruisers belonging to the Yareth Empire entered Sol space, expecting no fight. Their commanders were careless. Their ships broadcast open signals mocking Earth as they advanced. Prepare to kneel, humans, one message said. Your 2 words will be your last. But then something strange happened. One by one, the alien ships disappeared from radar. No explosions. No distress calls. Just silence. At first, the Yareth thought it was a system glitch. But when they tried to contact the cruisers, no answer came. Their voices echoed into nothing. From the shadows of asteroids near Jupiter, a shape appeared. It was long, sharp, covered in black plating that absorbed light. Red lines glowed across its surface like burning scars. The Yareth had never seen such a vessel. It was human. The cruiser commanders tried to flee, but it was already too late. The black ship moved with impossible speed, cutting across their formation like a blade. No weapons fire could be seen. The alien cruisers simply vanished, as if space itself had swallowed them. News traveled fast. Within hours, whispers spread across the stars. Some said the humans had built invisible fleets. Some said they had weapons that bent the fabric of reality. Some said they had made alliances with unknown powers. In the council chamber, however, the laughter continued. The prime speaker waved away the reports. Stories, he said. Lies made by frightened soldiers. He pointed at the galaxy map where fleets were already on their way to human borders. We will crush them in days. Let them hide in their world of blue and green. We are the galaxy. They are nothing. But still there was doubt. One council member, an elder with pale skin that shimmered like glass, spoke softly. Do not underestimate them. These humans, they have changed. I have seen that change before, long ago in other young races, and each time the galaxy trembled. The prime speaker ignored her. And so the vote stood. War against humanity. On Earth, in hidden shipyards beneath Saturn's rings, in silent factories buried deep within Mars, in stations cloaked by dark energy fields. Humanity's answer was already prepared. The time for silence was over. The time for patience was over. The galaxy would soon learn what no more truly meant. The galaxy believed the humans were reckless. The Council believed their fleets would crush Earth in days. The empires believed the silence after the message no more was nothing more than foolish pride, but none of them understood the truth. Humanity had been preparing in shadows. While the galaxy laughed at them, while the Council demanded tribute, while fleets hovered above their colonies, the humans had been building something the others could not imagine. It did not happen in public. It did not happen in bright shipyards that could be seen from orbit. It happened in places hidden from every eye. On Mars, beneath the red sands, tunnels stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Machines worked day and night, shaping steel, assembling engines, designing weapons that had no names. The surface looked empty, abandoned, but below it was alive with industry. Around Saturn, its rings glowed brighter than usual, but few noticed the reason. Buried in the shadow of the rings were stations covered in black metal. Entire factories floated there, shielded by energy fields that bent light itself, making them invisible. And further still, near the edge of the Kuiper Belt, human ships drifted silently in the dark. They were unlike any ships the galaxy had ever seen. No flashing lights, no heavy plating of the old Council designs. They were sharp, angular, built to vanish against the void. Their surfaces absorbed every trace of light, making them disappear into blackness. These ships were not built for defense. They were built for vengeance. The first test had already proven their power. 5 alien cruisers had entered Sol, and 5 alien cruisers had vanished. Their commanders never returned. Their crews never sent messages. Only silence remained. The Council dismissed it as rumor. But the aliens who lived near human space felt the truth in their bones. They had seen the black ships in shadows. They had seen the red scars that glowed across their hulls like molten fire. The humans had weapons hidden in those ships. Strange weapons, forbidden weapons. One alien smuggler, drunk and desperate, claimed he had seen a human test in the asteroid fields near Ceres. According to his story, a single human corvette had locked onto a moon-sized rock, and then, without firing a single visible beam, the rock had broken apart into dust, its pieces floating like sand in the void. Nobody believed him, but deep down, many feared it was true. The humans had not been idle during their silence. They had been listening. They had been learning. Every insult was a lesson. Every threat was a reason to grow stronger. They had studied alien technology, taken it apart and rebuilt it in their own way, but humans never copied blindly. They always changed, improved, and twisted what they learned into something new, and what they built in silence could no longer be hidden. The first great test came soon. A fleet from the Gorth Dominion, 80 ships strong, entered the Sol system. They were confident. Their leaders had promised glory. They expected to burn Earth's skies before the week ended. Instead, they met the hidden power of humanity. At first, the fleet advanced without resistance. The humans did not appear. The Dominion thought it was fear. But then their sensors began to fail. Ships lost contact with one another. Shadows passed across their hulls, though there were no planets nearby. Engines sputtered as if energy itself had been drained. And then, from the blackness, the human fleet emerged. Dozens of ships, their hulls covered in dark metal, moved like predators in the night. Their engines did not roar, they whispered. Their weapons did not flash, they glowed faintly like the edge of a storm. The Dominion fired first. Beams of plasma cut across space. Missiles streaked toward the human fleet. But the shot struck nothing. The human ships bent away, vanishing into shadows and reappearing in impossible places. Then humanity answered. The first shot was silent. A single human cruiser focused its weapon on the lead Dominion battleship. There was no explosion. There was no beam of fire. The battleship simply came apart, its pieces drifting slowly into the void as if it had been sliced by invisible blades. Panic spread through the Dominion fleet. They tried to retreat, but space itself betrayed them. Human weapons bent gravity. Warped distance pulled ships into traps they could not escape. One by one, Dominion vessels fell silent. In less than an hour, 80 ships were gone. Only fragments remained, floating quietly above Neptune. The galaxy learned that day what humanity's silence had meant. Reports reached the council. This time there was no laughter. Commanders demanded answers. How could a young race destroy an entire fleet in a single battle? What weapons had they built? What secrets had they uncovered? The Prime Speaker raged in denial. He called it lies. He said the Dominion fleet had been weak. He said humans were still nothing but reckless children. But the truth could not be buried anymore. Every corner of the galaxy whispered the same story. The humans had hidden power. The humans had weapons beyond understanding. And worst of all, the humans were no longer afraid to use them. Even among the council, fear began to spread. Some members who had mocked Earth now sat in silence, remembering the two words that had started it all. No more. It was not just a refusal. It was a declaration. And as more fleets prepared to move toward human space, as more empires promised to crush them, a new question burned in every mind. What else had humanity been hiding? The galaxy would soon find out. The galaxy had begun to whisper in fear. Fleets were gone. Armies had vanished in silence. The council tried to hide the truth, but truth cannot be buried forever. And now the first true storm was coming. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been silent. But silence was no longer their weapon. Now it was fire. For years, humans had listened to the council's laws. They had been told where to trade, where to travel, what colonies they could build, and how much they owed to powers older than stars. They had been taxed, bullied, mocked, and pushed. And each time they said nothing. Each time they waited, but no more was not only a message, it was a plan. The first strike began before the galaxy even knew war had started. Across 5 different star systems at the same exact moment, human fleets appeared. They did not come from open space. They slipped out of shadows, hidden stations, and invisible jumps. Black ships emerged from nowhere, moving like knives through the dark. The first system was ruled by the Tauran Syndicate. Their fleets were fat with arrogance, guarding planets where trade and power made them rich. At the hour of the strike, alarms screamed across their stations. Human ships were already inside orbit, bypassing every defense. The Syndicate's commanders shouted orders, but their voices ended with static. One by one, their stations flickered with fire. The second system belonged to the Creel. They had once enslaved humans on distant colonies, believing them too weak to resist. When human fleets appeared, the Creel panicked. They begged for talks, offered tribute, but the humans gave no answer. Their ships fired in silence, cold and precise, cutting the Creel's warfleet in half. The third system was controlled by the Dominion, still bleeding from its earlier defeat. Their generals promised to resist, but when human dreadnoughts entered the system, they froze. These ships were larger than any seen before, their hulls jagged, their cores glowing like suns. The Dominion fired everything they had. Missiles, plasma, railguns, it did not matter. The dreadnoughts did not fall. Instead, they advanced slowly, tearing apart every Dominion cruiser in their path. The fourth strike fell upon the Vari, a proud empire of winged warriors. For centuries, they had believed themselves unmatched in close combat, but they had never fought humans on their own terms. When human boarding squads arrived, armored in black steel and carrying weapons that bent light itself, the Vari finally understood fear. Their warriors were strong, but humans were relentless. They fought not only with skill, but with fury born of generations of insult. And the fifth strike. It was the one that made the galaxy tremble. The fifth system was a council world, a hub of trade and politics, filled with fleets from every empire. It was thought untouchable. No one dared to attack it, because an attack there was an attack on all. Yet as the galaxy watched, humanity struck anyway. At the exact moment fleets fell elsewhere, black ships entered orbit around the council world. They did not attack the civilians. They did not target cities. Instead, they destroyed the fleets stationed there, the fleets that had once stood ready to invade Earth. It was not conquest. It was a message. The humans had chosen their targets carefully. Every strike was against fleets, against weapons, against those who had laughed at their silence. Not a single civilian colony was burned. Not a single trade ship was touched. And that made the message louder. The galaxy realized humanity was not here to rule. They were here to end the rule of others. In the council chamber, chaos broke out. Leaders shouted over one another. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Some called for peace. Others whispered in fear, asking how humans could strike in 5 places at once. The Prime Speaker roared for war, slamming his staff against the floor. "They think themselves powerful," he shouted. "But they are still only one race. They cannot fight us all." But even as he spoke, reports arrived. 5 fleets destroyed, thousands of ships lost, entire sectors falling silent. The galaxy trembled. Out in the stars, human fleets regrouped. Their admirals spoke quietly. There was no joy, no pride, only cold determination. This was not about glory. This was not about power. This was survival. And yet, as the news spread, something unexpected began to happen. On distant worlds, alien slaves whispered of freedom. On hidden moons, rebel factions raised human banners. On quiet stations, ordinary beings looked to Earth and felt something new: hope. For the first time, the galaxy saw that someone had stood against the Council and survived. The first strike was more than destruction. It was a spark, and sparks, when left to burn, can set fire to the entire galaxy. But humanity was not finished. The Council would soon send greater fleets. Armies would march. Entire empires would combine against Earth. The question was no longer whether humans could fight. The question was how far they were willing to go. The answer would come soon, and it would shake the stars themselves. The first strikes had shattered the galaxy's balance. 5 fleets destroyed, 5 empires wounded, 1 council world left in ashes of silence. The news spread faster than light could travel. Everywhere, whispers began to rise. The galaxy had always believed the Council untouchable. No race had dared to defy them and lived. Yet the humans had not only defied them, they had struck, survived, and returned stronger. But the Council was far from finished. Across the spiral arms, fleets gathered. From empires that hated each other, from rulers who once fought endless wars, ships now marched under one banner: destroy humanity. It was the largest force assembled in 1,000 years. Millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, weapons older than Earth's history. The Council promised the galaxy that humanity would be erased. But humans were not afraid. In hidden stations, human admirals studied maps with calm eyes. In deep bunkers, leaders spoke with quiet voices. Soldiers sharpened their blades, checked their rifles, and whispered to one another. None of them spoke of fear. They had already lived under humiliation. They had already endured mockery. They had already been treated as less than nothing. What was left to fear? The day of the great confrontation arrived above a star called Denith Prime. The human fleet had entered the system, seeking to cut off a Council supply line. But instead of finding scattered ships, they found the entire combined fleet of the Council waiting. The galaxy held its breath. The humans were outnumbered 20-1. The Council's ships formed walls of metal, stretching across the system like chains of fire. Thousands of engines burned brightly, filling the void with light. From orbit, the site looked like a second star rising. For the first time since the war began, the Council believed victory was certain, but humanity did not retreat. At the front of their formation, a single dreadnought floated in silence. Its hull was jagged black, glowing faintly with red lines that pulsed like veins. It was enormous, longer than any ship the galaxy had ever built. Alien commanders called it a city of war. The Council signaled surrender demands. They told the humans to lay down their weapons. They promised mercy if Earth would kneel once again. The human admiral aboard the dreadnought listened. His face was calm. His voice was quiet. "We have already answered," he said. "No more." And with that, the dreadnought advanced alone. The Council fleets laughed at the madness. One ship against thousands, a fool's charge. But laughter turned to silence when the dreadnought's weapons fired. There was no beam of light, no explosion. Instead, space itself rippled like water. Waves of distorted gravity rolled outward, bending metal and crushing engines. Entire squadrons twisted as if invisible hands had torn them apart. Ships broke into fragments, silent and cold. The dreadnought did not stop. It moved forward slowly, tearing apart fleets with every step. The Council panicked. Thousands of ships opened fire, filling the void with light. Plasma beams, railguns, missiles, all aimed at the lone human vessel. The dreadnought's black hull burned under the storm, but it did not fall. Its shields flared like dying suns, its armor cracked, yet it pressed forward. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet emerged. Smaller ships darted like shadows, slipping through the chaos. striking at weak points. Alien vessels, confused and broken by the dreadnought's assault, fell apart in minutes. But the cost was heavy. The human dreadnought burned. Decks collapsed. Fires raged inside its walls. Hundreds of soldiers gave their lives to keep it moving. Still it advanced. Alien commanders shouted in desperation, "Destroy it! End it!" Yet no matter how much fire they poured, the dreadnought would not stop. Finally, with one last surge of power, the massive human ship tore through the center of the Council fleet. Its core overloaded, its red veins glowing like a dying star. The Admiral stood at his station, calm to the end, whispering, "No more." And then the dreadnought exploded. The shockwave was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not fire, not light, but pure silence. A hole opened in space itself, pulling ships into its depths, crushing them into nothingness. When it closed, half the Council fleet was gone. The survivors fled. The galaxy trembled. The humans had lost their greatest dreadnought, but they had broken the largest fleet the Council had ever built. And in doing so, they proved something more terrifying than victory. They proved they could not be broken. On distant worlds, the news spread like wildfire. Slaves rose against their masters. Small empires declared rebellion. Entire systems refused to send tribute to the Council. And in every corner of the galaxy, beings whispered the same words. If humans can fight, why not us? The turning point had come. The Council had thought they would destroy Earth. Instead, they had lit a fire across the stars. Humanity was no longer a target. Humanity was a symbol. The dreadnought's sacrifice had changed everything. A single ship had torn through the largest fleet in the galaxy. Half of the Council's armada was gone in silence, swallowed by the black hole the humans created when their vessel collapsed. The other half scattered, broken, humiliated. The Council tried to hide the truth. They claimed it was not a defeat, only a setback. They told the galaxy their power was still strong. But lies cannot cover the stars. Survivors spread their stories. They spoke of the human dreadnought that refused to fall, of soldiers who fought while their ship burned, of the explosion that ripped space itself apart. Everywhere the whispers grew louder. On mining moons, workers who had once lowered their heads now raised their fists. On border colonies, governors declared they would no longer send tribute. On worlds long enslaved, banners of rebellion rose under the same words humanity had spoken. No more. The galaxy trembled not because of the humans' weapons, but because of their will. Still, the Council refused to accept defeat. They called for new fleets, new armies. They promised the humans would pay, but deep down fear had rooted itself in their hearts. The humans had shown something no empire could match: the courage to stand against everyone and refuse to kneel. In hidden chambers, alien rulers whispered in fear. If they defeated half our fleet, what else do they have? If they sacrificed one dreadnought, how many more are waiting? No answer brought comfort. Meanwhile, humanity pressed forward. Their fleets did not stop at Denith Prime. They moved from system to system, striking fast, destroying supply lines, cutting communications. They never lingered. They never conquered. They struck and vanished, leaving only silence and wreckage behind. The Council's armies grew desperate. They tried traps. They set ambushes. But each time humans escaped, it was as if they were always one step ahead, as if they knew the Council's plans before the Council even decided them. And in a way, they did. For decades, humanity had been listening. While the Council mocked them, human spies had mapped trade routes, coded enemy signals, and studied every weakness. Now those maps and codes guided their war. Where the Council thought themselves strong, the humans revealed the cracks. One night in the chamber of the Council itself, silence fell when an advisor entered with trembling hands. He dropped a piece of metal on the table. It was black, jagged, glowing faintly red, the broken fragment of a human weapon. It was found on the edge of our capital system, he whispered. They could have struck here. The chamber shook with panic. For the first time in centuries, the rulers realized their home was not safe. But humanity did not attack the Council's capital. Not yet. Instead, they let fear do the work. Every empire that had once mocked Earth now questioned its future. Every fleet commander now hesitated before marching. Every colony now wondered if humans would appear in the dark. And with hesitation came rebellion. The Creel, once enslavers, now faced uprisings in half their colonies. The Vari, once proud warriors, now found themselves trapped by their own soldiers refusing orders. Even the Dominion, weakened from the first battles, began to collapse as systems declared independence. The galaxy was tearing itself apart. At the center of it stood humanity. They did not claim thrones. They did not raise banners of conquest. They simply fought. Every strike was precise, every battle chosen, every word silent. And silence spoke louder than the Council's lies. Finally, the Prime Speaker called another meeting. His metallic plates shone under the light, but his voice trembled with anger. "They are one race," he shouted. "One world, one people. How can they defy us all?" An elder counselor looked at him calmly. Her glass-like skin reflected the chamber's glow. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through every corner of the hall. "They are not one world anymore," she said. "They are an idea, and ideas cannot be crushed by fleets." Silence followed. The war was far from over. Battles still raged, fleets still clashed, and blood still fell on the stars. But the balance had shifted forever. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was no longer silent. The galaxy had trembled once before when the Council first rose to power. But now it trembled again for a different reason, because a small world, ignored and mocked, had stood up and said two words that shook the stars: no more. And every empire, every race, every world would remember them. This was not the end of the war. This was the beginning of the age of humanity.